I'm a pretty big fan of the truth, as long as it doesn't get in my way. Then I'm not a fan of the truth. That's just, you know. So, well, and I, I could easily get political and get in your business and all that. And I don't. It doesn't matter. This is not about political parties. This is about a basic human tendency to want the truth when it is convenient and helpful to me, to not want it when it's not convenient and not helpful to me. And I, it doesn't matter who you voted for, what party you're a part of, your demographics are of little value in this discussion, as in they don't matter. We are broken people, and part of our brokenness has to do with our interest in bending the truth so that it serves us, ignoring it when it doesn't. So, gosh, you don't have to have very much background. You don't have to have very much conviction even to go a long time on truth and how hard it is to find it in our culture. That's nothing new. It really is not. Look at what we're in 2 John, verse 4. It has given me great joy to find some of your children walking in the truth just as the Father commanded us. Two, at least a couple of things here. Well, maybe three. John writes, has given me great joy. What gives you great joy? See, your real values in life are one of the things that exposes my values is what brings me joy. I don't know. I'm in this mood today, so I'm going to kind of go with it. But one of the things that brings me joy. Wait a second. Not always joy, but happiness is getting what I want. That's a problem, a big problem, because sometimes what I want and me getting what I want means what you want, and you getting what you want has to, it has to go away because we can't both get what we want sometimes. And when that happens and I get what I want, I have this sense of happiness, but it is often, very often, short-lived. Because there's going to come another moment when you get what you want, which is not what I want. So, but an important aspect of this is the difference between joy and happiness. Happiness, well, the root word from which happiness comes is happening. And that gives you a strong hint about what happiness is connected to, what it's about. Well, it's about an event. It's about a happening that happens the way I want it to. Or that maybe doesn't exactly happen the way I want it to, but it turns out for my good. Happiness is about events. And, you don't have to be a philosopher to know. Sometimes events happen in such a way that they are very positive for us, and at other times not. What happens when they're not? We are unhappy. Is joy, now, joy is a deep, abiding sense, and, sense of what? Happiness? Well, see now, joy doesn't exclude happiness. happiness can often is a distinct part of joy, but it's not always about happy. There are times in a mature person's life when the happenings are not favorable to them, and they're not happy, and yet there is a deep settled joy in them. I think you often see this most in times of disaster, trauma, disappointment. You come down to the runway where most of us live most of the time, and when a person with joy survives disappointment way better than the person who depends only on happiness. See, if a person depends only on happiness, then what they're going to do is when they don't feel happy, when they feel the discouragement, when they feel the disappointment, they'll push toward what they think will make them happy. People of joy have a deep inner sense that I think what it means is a combination of several things. One is fulfillment, a purpose. I feel that I have value and my experience has value because I am valuable. There is an aspect of even, a layer on top of that is that the reason I feel valued and the reason that my experience is valuable is because I am valued by God. I don't think that joy is exclusively available to Christians, but joy comes from this sense of satisfaction that we are in right relationship ultimately with someone or something, I suppose, above us, beyond us. Who would have thought you could take something as simple as joy and make it that muddy? But joy is an inner strength. It's an inner settledness. See, I think joy is connected to peace, and maybe this would be the a little bit of the flavor of joy. Joy is not just an emotion, but it involves an emotion. Happiness is mainly an emotion. Joy is an emotion, but it is beyond mere emotion because it sets itself on fact. All right. John writes, it has given me great joy. Where was John? Where did John find his great joy? He found it, he goes on to say, to find some of your children walking in the truth. Now, if you've ever worked with people, if you've volunteered in church, especially if you've been in a children's or youth ministry setting or a discipling setting, you know how it just is a great thing when you see people that you're working with develop and mature. I was in youth ministry for only 17 years. A lot of people have been in or are in youth ministry for much longer than me. I don't know how I did it, but my friend Steve Johnson over in Tulsa, he stayed in youth ministry from when he graduated from Bible college until his retirement. Of course, he was the ever-ready bunny, always was. But here's the thing. Got sidetracked there. One of the greatest paychecks, I guess I would say, for youth ministry is watching these kids grow up into maturity. One of the advantages of being in youth ministry for as long as I was is that I saw lots of kids start as first graders, graduate from high school, get married, and have their own kids. And now I stay in contact with a few who they're mature adults making a difference in the world. That makes me happy. And John says he gets great joy from finding some of her children. Now, you got to go back to the first verse where John identifies himself as the elder and identifies the target, the audience for this letter as the lady chosen by God and her children. That's the church and its members. And now John says, when I see these people walking in the truth, all right. If you're not involved in some kind of service where you get to watch people mature, I want to recommend that you look for it. Now, a lot of people are going to go, man, I don't have background enough to do that. I'm like, gosh. Well, here's the thing. I learned this when I was working in the recovery ministry, Celebrate Recovery, and Celebrate Recovery uses the 12 steps, connecting them to their roots in the Bible. And one of the things is, to lead someone, you only need to be one step ahead. Now, it'd be great if you're 3 or 5 or 12 steps ahead, but you don't have to be a mile down the trail. There are people. I think I can say almost every situation involves people who are less mature than you. And those are people who you can serve. All right. John says he gets this joy, great joy, not just joy, great joy, when he finds children walking in the truth. What does it mean to walk in the truth? Now, the idea of walking in Scripture has less to do with transportation and more to do with style of life. Now, don't forget, though, in the first century, the primary mode of transportation was human feet. Not everybody had a horse or a mule or donkey. Really only the wealthy, well-established and wealthy had those things. Most people went from point A to point B by walking. When you go to ancient cities now in the Middle East or in Europe, you realize these streets were not built for cars. They were built for carts and horses and for buggies. Well, you run the clock back even further into the AD 100 or earlier, and you realize these streets were laid to be walked on. And walking, primary means of transportation. But when John writes about, it gives me great joy to find that some of your children are walking in the truth, has to do with the way they live their life. They're chosen, intentional, and their even unintentional lifestyle is rooted in the truth. Their priority is discovering the truth and organizing their life around it. I believe this to be one of the biggest things that doesn't happen among Christians, is that we don't we don't look for and discover the truth and often enough. And then when we do, we don't tend to organize our life around it. We tend to file it away in the compartment in our brain under truth. And so that we have this intellectual grasp of some kind, but it seems to never get into our behaviors. See, when John is pointing out these children who walk in the truth, he's talking about behaviors that their life demonstrates that they have discovered the truth and they've organized their life around it. I bet you some of us need to do that. And I've blown past my time, so I'm going to close, and I'll hope to connect with you again next time on So Care with Stevie Boy.